Right now. All right. My name is Kimberly Ernest, and I am a licensed psychologist and licensed professional counselor here in the state of Pennsylvania. And today I am going to go through some quick tricks, tips, and information on how to speak to our child and adolescent clients in the midst of a COVID-19 outbreak, and kind of discuss how, while there's a lot of uncertainty currently existing within the world and the community, sort of how we can discuss this with our kiddos to help them feel supported and cared for during what is a very difficult and kind of scary time for all of us. That doesn't work. Okay. So, first and foremost, I think as clinicians and as professionals, it becomes our role and our responsibility to use age appropriate language with the kiddos that we are talking to. We want to make sure that we're empowering the parents that we work with. Or the caregivers that are the primary supports for these kiddos, to talk to their kids about COVID-19 in a way that is both appropriate and supportive. One of the first ways that we can do that is to ensure that they're using age appropriate language, making sure that we're creating some fun in the uncertainty. So here in the state of Pennsylvania, we've had numerous school closures. We recognize that in those school closures, we have kids now that are being required to stay home that would otherwise be headed to school. And that's changing the normal routine a lot for these kids and adolescents. Anytime you change up a routine for kiddos, they're going to experience a little bit of anxiety, but we can do our best by sort of creating fun out of what otherwise might feel a little chaotic or unsettling. Assist parents in developing their own management techniques, assist parents in developing structure and planning their days. If these parents aren't used to sort of supporting their kiddos all day, every day, they might experience their own level of disruption or discomfort in developing these new norms and patterns. It's helpful to help the parents uh, develop their own it would be helpful to help the parents to develop their own system or pattern of relating so that they can ensure that their kids experience as little disruption as possible. And then last but not least, start teaching kiddos age-appropriate anxiety reduction techniques. So sometimes that involves deep belly breathing, which involves deep diaphragmatic breathing low into the abdomen. Sesame Street has excellent episodes to teach that. I also know that my 4-year-old loves his worry troll. So he has a little stuffed animal that he tells all of his worries to, and it helps him kind of talk through and engage in a bit of self-soothing. For older kids and adolescents, doing art or creating journals to sort of manage and explore their own feelings surrounding this sort of difficult and kind of ever-evolving situation can be really useful. It's in it's important that we as professionals and as parents remain calm and offer a reassuring tone and affect. We want to make sure we're managing our own affect as it relates to the scenario. And many of us, either professionals or parents, probably come into this with a bit of our own story. I would argue that I myself have struggled with anxiety and depression numerous times over the course of my life. And I would say that now is no different. I know I'm certainly experiencing disruptions in my own calm, but it's important to insulate our kids from that as much as possible. Even when we're talking to spouses or partners, or many of us are working remotely and trying to game plan and figure out what we're going to do as agencies or as companies, it's important to sort of keep the kids as separated from that as we possibly can. And it's not only about what we're saying to our children, but it's how we're saying it. We want to be mindful that we're not making value judgments about other cultures or other cultures or places that might be responding differently. And we want to just be kind and mindful in the language that we're using. Make yourself available to listen and talk with our kiddos. Kids are going to have a lot of questions right now. Make sure they're not getting lost in the shuffle as we go out and meal prep and plan and stock up on toilet paper and go grocery shopping. Make sure we're creating and setting aside time to discuss it with them. Talking to our kids about how they're not going to be going to school for the next couple of weeks and discussing what their fears and anxieties might be associated with that. I think it's important to remember that our kiddos are going to be very egocentric, especially younger kids, but that's pretty developmentally appropriate for all individuals under the age of 18. It's important to address their fears specifically and how it relates to them. Assure them that as parents, communities, clinicians, and helpers, we're doing everything we can to keep these kiddos safe and ensure a safe environment. Assuage them of their fears of how this is going to impact them and assure them that they're going to be okay moving forward, that we are going to work together as a community, as a family, as a system of helping professionals to maintain their safety in this time of uncertainty. Be mindful of media access. Right now, I know it's very hard. I know essentially been mainlining media access and trying to monitor this ever evolving situation, but also be aware that if you have the TV on in the background, you don't have a whole lot of control over what images your children are going to be subjected to or consuming. I was watching the news just to see about school closures and what's going to happen next. And next thing I know, they're interviewing a gentleman who currently has coronavirus, who has tubes and wires and all kinds of other things. Many of our kiddos have never seen images like that, and it's probably best to insulate them from that as much as possible. It's important to talk to our kids about what it's going to look like, and how and how to best protect themselves from illness. But it's also important to be mindful that we want to ensure that we're not subjecting our kids to images and media that they don't know how to consume. Limit child and adolescent social media access. Take fresh air breaks, get outside, make sure you're taking care of yourself, and that you're not just mainlining sort of news media 24/7. Educate your kiddos, provide information that's honest, accurate, age appropriate, and encouraging. I think it's very easy right now to fall into some worst case scenario ideas. I think it's also important for us to be mindful that those worst case scenarios are just that right now, and encourage our kids that no matter what happens, we're going to get through it, and that we as the parents and caregivers and clinicians and helpers are going to be here to support them through it. Right now, it's really important that we instill hope and confidence in our competence with these little guys and help them feel comfortable about what might happen next. Teach kids everyday actions that are going to avoid the spread of germs. We want to limit our access to people who are sick. Teach kids that elbow cough or to sneeze into a tissue and throw it away. Talk to kids about washing hands. I know my kiddos being asked to wash their hands is essentially the equivalent of asking them for a kidney. But really try to make it fun, try to talk them into it, and then discuss how normal everyday events are going to be canceled, that things are going to be different, that events are moving online, or I know that now you can stream Frozen 2, that school is going to be accessed remotely. So talk to them about how those changes are all in an effort to protect them. In light of the closures, assist parents and caretakers in developing a routine and schedule that's going to work for them. Provide caregivers or adolescents with clients with information as it pertains to crisis intervention. So ensure you're providing them contact information for crisis phone numbers so that if they are in the midst of a mental health crisis and as certain things are closing down or access is being limited, they have a plan. And for clinicians working with clients that have a tendency to fall into crisis, now is the time to update crisis plans so that they have options for if they experience their own mental health crisis. During no-shows this week, call and check in on all your high-risk clients. Ask about natural supports, encourage healthy coping skills during a stressful time, and update safety plans verbally with the client. Remind clients of crisis intervention phone numbers and document all of this outreach in a chart. Here are a few tips for age by age support for kiddos in the midst of a COVID-19 outbreak. For preschoolers, talk to them, find out what they know, ask them what they've heard about people getting sick or what information they presently have. Work to clear up any misconceptions. Pay attention that a lot of kiddos are talking about a lot of crazy things. My 4-year-old asked me if we're about to have a zombie outbreak. So I think it's important to clear up any confusion that might be surrounding this event. Keep it simple and succinct and make them feel safe. For elementary school aged, again, it's important to identify and correct misconceptions. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Keep it concrete and ask them about what they think and what they're sort of wrestling with in surrounding all of this. For middle and high schoolers, keep the lines of conversation open. Limit exposure to graphic images and videos, and keep individual temperament in mind. Also model positive behavior and positive coping. I think now more than ever, as clinicians, as professionals, we might feel anxiety. We might feel our own moments of kind of melting down or needing to cry or needing to stress. And that's excellent. You should do all of those things. Lean into it, but lean into it when your kids aren't around. It's important to model positive coping behaviors in front of our kiddos. Right now, more than ever, things are going to be hard on helpers. Many of us operate from the positions of wounded healers. We have our own anxiety, we have our own depression, we have our own history of symptoms. Make sure you're taking care of yourself in this high stress time. Seek to manage anxiety effectively, and support your team, colleagues, and communities as much as possible. It's important to disconnect and take breaks from the media. I know this rabid consumption can feel good in the moment, but it's also going to lead to stress and burnout. And last but not least, selfcompassion.org has a number of great resources that as professionals and as healers and as helpers that we can all access to sort of maintain our own sanity in this high stress time. As a helper, familiarize yourself with local resources. There's a lot of individuals out there working hard to mobilize to support our communities. And while more and more resources may be closing, many more are going to be opening. So stay familiar with what's going on and what's available in your communities. Use caution in both your personal and professional world, and use your best judgment and take care of yourself and your families however you need to. As a parent, I put a link on here for amazingeducationalresources.com. A lot of kids are now homeschooling, and we have a lot of time to fill, moms. So that is some resources. Today, I spent some time gathering and pulling together different activities that we can use. I'm charging the iPad, and while we usually only use screen time during travel, we're going to have a little iPad time carved out throughout the day just to keep NAMI safe as we provide childcare here at home. Support your family, be kind to each other, and buckle up. We can do this. I know that I've watched moms and communities come together and support. Parents and communities come together and support in the midst of some pretty dark and difficult times. And I don't think this is going to be any different. I am confident and optimistic that as a community, we're going to see a lot of helpers mobilize and come together to treat the needs and anxieties as they present. And as a human, be sure that you're out there giving the best you can, comforting the most you can, caring the best you can, detaching whenever able, and please, please wash your damn hands. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to log off, but I thank you all for allowing me to do this trial run, although I'm still obviously exceptionally nervous as I stumble over my words, and probably a little sleep deprived. I feel like I haven't slept since Monday as I work to figure out how to access and support our teams remotely. But I thank you all for your time and your attention and your practice today. I really appreciate your willingness to be my guinea pig. And I am very hopeful and optimistic that we will come through this together. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. And I'm going to go ahead and log off now. Thank you.